and welcome to Genesis Volatility's educational series. Today we'll be talking about the monthly economic release known as the employment situation. This number is conducted and calculated by the BLS, or the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and released on the first Friday of every month at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. This statistic gives a broad overview of the current employment situation in the United States of America and is one of the biggest market moving events. Let's explore why. A key insight that you need to know about the BLS's employment situation is that it's conducted using two key surveys, the Household Survey and the Establishment Survey. Now, each survey has its own set of pros and cons, and together they go very well in a complementary fashion. But what's really important to know is that the BLS conducts this survey around the 12th day of every month and releases the economic data on the first Friday of the following month, which means there's only about 3 to 4 weeks between when the survey is conducted and when the data is released. So that means there could be a lot of surprises in this economic number, as well as a lot of leading indicators embedded in it. Let's explore the differences between the surveys now. The Household Survey is responsible for the big headline number that everyone talks about, the US unemployment rate. The way that the BLS conducts the Household Survey is by reaching out by mail and by phone to around 60,000 households every month. The Bureau of Labor Statistics asks a typical set of questions. Are you currently employed? If not, have you applied for jobs in the past 4 weeks? If you are employed, is it part-time work or full-time work? They also ask a bunch of demographics-related questions. Taken together, the Household Survey is responsible for calculating the unemployment rate, the participation rate, and estimating the labor force. One of the pros about the Household Survey is that it's able to account for people who are self-employed, as well as people who are working in the farming sector, and people who are deemed as domestic help, in-house maids, au pairs, so on and so forth. Now, one of the biggest cons about the Household Survey is that it's very reliant on the honesty and the accuracy of the respondents. Lastly, one of the important things to keep in mind is that the labor force statistics and the unemployment rate statistics have a lot of gray area around how they're defined. So let's touch on that now. When we talk about the unemployment rate and the participation rate in the labor force, a lot of details need to be clearly defined. The way that the Bureau of Labor Statistics defines the unemployment rate and the participation rate first begins by defining the broad, non-institutional civilian population. This means everyone who's older than 16 years old, isn't currently active in the military, isn't in prison, isn't a student, isn't sick in the hospital, so on and so forth, meaning everyone above 16 who theoretically could work. Now, given this broad population set, the BLS then divides this group into 3 subcategories. People who currently have a job, the employed, people who don't have a job but are currently looking or have applied in the past 4 weeks, the unemployed, and lastly, people who don't have a job but are not looking for a job. This is the non-participation, and they're not part of the labor force. When we talk about the participation rate, we're talking about the labor force have a job or looking for a job divided by the total non-institutional civilian population. And when we talk about the unemployment rate, the headline unemployment rate, we're just comparing people who don't have a job but are looking divided by the labor force. Now, one of the key assumptions that's implicit in this is that people who don't have a job and are not looking are people who want to be out of the labor force. But the truth is, often these are discouraged workers, people who would like to have a job but have kind of given up looking. And so when we talk about the unemployment rate, it's really important that we understand these assumptions. And the BLS is actually aware of this. And what they do is that they released broader measures of unemployment known as the U5 and the U6 rates. And those are basically unemployment rates that account for dropout and participation and also account for people who have part-time jobs who would really like to have full-time jobs. Taken together, these are some of the key insights that the household survey provides, and it gives a broad overview of the jobs market in the US. Now, let's explore the establishment survey, which is another angle that the BLS takes. Using the establishment survey, the BLS reaches out to 440,000 businesses, whether that's big corporations or small businesses, and gauges their increase or decrease in payroll headcount, as well as more detailed insights such as overtime paid, the length of the work week in terms of hours, the hourly pay of workers, so on and so forth. One of the obvious pros of the establishment survey is that it doesn't rely on the honesty or accuracy of household respondents. On the con side, however, it doesn't account for people who are self-employed or people who are working in the farming sector, and it doesn't make a distinction between full-time jobs and part-time jobs. But one of the big pros of the establishment survey is that it's further broken down by industries and by geography. So analysts can use this data to find relative strength and weakness in the job market for different industries and different parts of the country. Lastly, there's a lot of details that you can use in the establishment survey that can work as key indicators for analysts. First, we need to realize that about 150,000 jobs per month need to be created in order to account for population growth, migration trends, so on and so forth. But digging deeper, doing analysis around expansion or decrease in overtime, as well as expansion and decrease in work week time, as well as expansion or decrease in hourly wages, is a really good leading indicator because companies typically would like to increase or decrease output of existing workers before hiring or firing more workers. And this could be a really key insight about what the economy is going to do in the near future versus hiring decisions becoming more of a lagging indicator. I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope you can use the insights from this economic number into your trading. And remember, find edge, capture alpha, and slang size.